Welcome everyone to another video by Calendar. Today, I'll be covering a rogue-specific setup for Burning Crusade Classic, including important UI elements and WoW settings that are critical for both PvE and PvP. I'll cover keybinds and my advanced macros that allow you to only change one button on your action bars when you swap between specs. This setup is a result of dozens of hours of practice on arenas, thought, and planning, and if you like what you see, please let me know. But let's get into it. Before we talk about anything else, let's get into in-game settings that I believe are important to your character. As with anything, these settings are all up to personal preference, so by no means do you need to copy these settings to be successful. Before we get into interface options, there's a few critical system settings to go over. The first slider I want to point out is the ground clutter option. When farming an open world or in certain BGs, I will slide this all the way down in order to increase my invisibility. Next up, under the Advanced Settings menu, you can find the option to check your UI scale. While smaller is typically more aesthetic, we do want more visibility for our health and our action bars, especially in PvP. Finally, under Sound, especially in arenas, you will react a lot to in-game sounds. That's why I have the following settings. I have my music disabled, I have ambient sounds disabled, and I have error speech disabled. I also have our dialogue speech set to 50% of in-game volume with the sliders on the right hand side. Next up are our interface options. Under controls, with sticky targeting, this is up to personal preference, but I always have it enabled as a rogue, so you don't have to worry about losing your target with mouse movement. The rest of these options in this menu are personal preference and don't really impact the gameplay. Under combat, for both PvE and PvP, you'll want to enable target of target. The more information you have about what your target is doing, the better. Screen flash at low health is a personal preference. While the reminder can be nice, it can also be a big visual distraction from other things. With the macros later in this video, you'll want to make sure that focus cast and self cast key are off. For auto self cast, you can either keep this on for things like poison removal and bandages, or you can macro them into your abilities. Under display, for display options, I always make sure that my status text is set to numerical value. I actually use an add-on for this called Format Fix to get rid of slash and total health. Everything else under here is personal preference. Under social, nothing here impacts gameplay, so we'll go ahead and skip it. Under action bar, if you're using the stock action bars like shown in this video, I play with all action bars enabled. I play with stacking the right bars disabled, and also I play with the action bars locked with the shift key to move abilities. Action bars being locked doesn't matter too much since we won't really be clicking anything. There's no real risk of removing them from your bars. For names, nameplate options depend largely on your role. For PvP, I like to have all enemy units. I also like to have minions as well as minor enabled. It can be very useful as a rogue to have your eyes on enemy pets, as well as minor things like tremor totems and etc. Under camera, I turn everything off, everything automatic off, and I set the maximum distance to high. For your mouse settings, as a general rule in all games, you should always have mouse acceleration off, and you should change your mouse sensitivity with DPI settings that come with your mouse instead of any in-game settings. Under raid profiles, I choose to use the stock raid frames that are built into WoW Classic with the following settings. I have everything enabled except for border and except for display only dispellable buffs, since we can't dispel anything. Health text display is set to health remaining. Height and width are set to maximum for visibility. And for 25-man settings, everything is the same except I set the height and the width to minimum. I have no health text set, and I usually will have these frames hidden in a raid environment to clean up my UI. Now for part 2, keybinds. If you're brand new to min-maxing your keybinds, Muhshuh has a fantastic video covering keybinds. I highly recommend checking it out with the link below. When I plan out these keybinds and button layout, I had a few things in mind. The first is what do I hit often? Next is what do I need to hit quickly? Third is what do I need to hit in combination with other abilities? Example, Shadow Step, Vanish, Garrote. And 4, what do I need to hit that's important? Example, long cooldowns, as well as what do I need to hit that is not important? For example, mounting up or opening my character panel. Based on what's the easiest to hit, I arrived at this layout. As you can see, I started with a blank layout of all the buttons I wanted to press, rated from S to F tier by how easy that button is for me to hit consistently. This is largely based on personal preference, and while this could be a great starting point if you're brand new to Rogue and TBC, it's also largely based on what you are comfortable with. One quick example, for me personally, I have a very high propensity to fat finger when trying to hit my T key. I used to have this bound to Shiv, but learned quickly that this doesn't work for me as I kept accidentally hitting R, which is my shadow step. One important thing to remember that is specific to Rogue is that there is a slight delay between swapping from your normal action bar to your stealth action bar. If you're relying on using the same keybind for different abilities in and out of stealth, this delay can cause you to either cast the wrong ability or not cast it at all after vanishing. To get around this, there are 2 basic things that I've done. First, I've set my stealth bar and main bar to be exactly the same, so no matter what state the bar is in, I'm casting the correct ability. Second, I've also added stealth modifiers to the macros going to be covered in the next section. While I recommend customizing your keybinds to what fits you best, pause the video now if you want to use my keybind setup as a baseline. And here's all of my character's keybind settings. Again, Muhshuh's video below is absolutely fantastic if you want to learn more about what to bind or unbind as a starting point. Feel free to pause the video as I scroll through each pane if you're looking to copy these settings. And now for part 3, the actual macros and setup for this character. I want to go basically item by item on my action bars and show you how I have it set up. Now some of these are literally placeholders where they don't actually do anything. For example, this slot right here, which is why you'll see no keybinds. But let's go ahead and go through it. So first off, starting left to right on my main action bar, I have my cancel stealth macro. Now in my cancel stealth macro, it also includes my racial, so perception or anything like that. Depending on your race, you're going to want to change this, but for human, I have cancel aura with no mod for stealth, and then cast mod shift perception. So 1 is bound to cancel stealth, shift 1 is bound to perception. This is just an extra ability to show my perception cooldown. Moving over to the right, where we have ghostly strike, none of these are actually ghostly strike. So on the 2 key, we have Shiv. So on Shiv, it's cast no mod Shiv. And then otherwise, if I cast Shift, hold Shift while pressing my 2 button, it's going to equip my crippling poison weapon, which is Retainer's Blade. This is my main weapon, the fastest dagger that I have. Right above that, I have my Mind and Wound swap. So it's just going to show tooltip Ghostly Strike, equip, and this slot my designated Mind Numbing, or if it's modded Shift, equip my designated Wound Poison weapon. Keep in mind, these do eat a global cooldown. Moving over, we have our Cloak of Shadows. So underneath, this is just the ability Cloak of Shadows. There's no macro or anything. You retain this in both PvE and PvP spec, so there's no reason to have a macro for this. So it's Cloak of Shadows. Underneath that is Deadly Throw, and with mod Shift, cast Throw. Moving on, we have our 5-point Evis on the main bar. So we have Eviscerate as 4, Shift 4 for Kidney Shot. The reason I have Kidney Shot as a lower priority on my keybinds is because it's propensity to fat finger and propensity to also overuse. So I want to keep Kidney Shot as a Shift 4, so I hit it when I want to hit it no matter what. Above that, we have our Garrote. And then just so we have all of the abilities on there, I also have Envenom macro there as well. But the main ability is Garrote, only from stealth. Moving over to Gouge, we have Gouge, mod Shift at Focus Gouge. Very simple macro. And then above that, we have Slice and Dice on Z, and also Rupture on Shift C. Moving over to our Q key, we have blind. And then underneath that, where the 6 normally would be, we have just blind again. This is again a placeholder, so if you want a keybind, maybe you want to move kick over here or something like that, you can totally do that. Or maybe you want to put a shadow step sap macro, something like that in there. You have these empty slots that are available. Now in slot 6 here is premeditation shown, but in addition to that, it's also hemo. So hemo, I have 2 types for this pre-med macro, is Sinister Strike. Whenever I'm in PvE spec, I'll cast Sinister Strike. And then I also have hemo and show premeditation. I also have these keybound when I don't have premeditation. I have the icon changed to the actual pre-med logo, pre-med icon. Moving on is Vanish. This is my all-in-one Vanish and Cheap Shot and Stealth macro. So it casts if you're in Stealth, Cheap Shot. It casts if you mod Shift and you're not in Stealth, Vanish. It casts if you mod Control, Vanish. The reason why I have a Shift mod, no Stealth Vanish, and a mod Control Vanish is if you're in Stealth and you want to pre-vanish. I can Control middle click, I can Shift middle click to vanish if I'm not in, and it won't. So if I'm not in Stealth right here, I can hold Shift or Control, and it depends based on that. So no Stealth Vanish. And then this is just regular Vanish. So I can vanish from Stealth, this doesn't matter. So if I'm in Stealth and I'm spamming, I'm holding Shift key right now, it's not gonna vanish unless I move over to the Control key. Moving on, over from there is Sprint. So for Sprint, I'm gonna stop attack with no mod or clear target. This is my spam sap macro. This is just regular Sprint because you have that in PvE and PvP spec. So you have show tooltip sprint, stop attack, clear target, target enemy player, no exists, no combat, no dead, no mod. Then cast, sap. And then in addition to that, if I shift modifier, this spam sap macro, it's going to set a focus target. So I can target this Defias Rogue Wizard, hit Shift T, and then if I hit Control T, it's gonna clear that focus target. So Shift, Control, very simple. So if I'm running around stealth in arena, I'm like, oh, there's my healer. I'm gonna go ahead and focus him, and then maybe I want to clear target, reset, something like that. Now, next up on the list is my all-in-one pickpocket and mount macro. So this macro will cast at mouse over pickpocket. So when I'm in stealth, and it won't interfere with my ability to mount. And if I mod Control, it'll cast a mount. If I'm outdoors, it'll cast my ground mount. And if it's flyable, it'll cast my flying mount. It'll also dismount if you're mounted, but it is a spammable macro. So you can spam it while you're mounting because of the modifier on the dismount mod control. It has to be mounted to spam that. Next up is evasion. So in my evasion, I actually have this is a blank slot again, so you have 3 blank slots that are underutilized. It's this one, this one, this one. You can easily bind abilities and do show tooltip evasion, show tooltip blind, or show tooltip perception / racial. But in here, I have no mod cast Ghost Restrike, and then if I mod Shift, it'll cast evasion. I also have it dummy proof. I added a no stealth modifier, so I'm not going to, if I'm in stealth and I spam Shift E, which is evasion, it's not going to knock me out of stuff. Next up is prep. Prep is easy. I have the icon already set to preparation, and I cast preparation show tooltip. Very simple. Kick, same thing, except with kick, the only difference is I have no mod kick, mod shift, focus kick. Now over here, on this other section of my bar, I have Blade Flurry and Adrenaline Rush. These 2 macros are literally just show tooltip Adrenaline Rush, show tooltip Blade Flurry, and I also have the icon changed to match these 2 abilities. So when I swap between specs, you'll see what I mean. The icons will remain, same thing with preparation, with pre-med, with goals to strike. If you set this picture to match the actual icon, then it won't lose the visual. There won't be a bunch of question marks all over your bars. Next up, I have my trinket macros. So these are set to trinket 1, and this is trinket 2. If I hold shift, it will be Adrenaline Rush and Blade Flurry. This is the only thing that is going to have those question marks. The reason is because if I were to change this icon, even though it's showing the trinket icon, it puts the picture above it, which is for me not what I'm looking to do. I want to see those trinkets in case I trinket swap or something like that. Last but not least, over here I have just my standard crippling poison, mind numbing, and wound poison weapon swap macros. These are 1, 2, 3. Part of the reason I have these on my bars is because if I were to swap and shift X and I want to know quickly, okay, what weapon do I have equipped? It's a very quick visual indicator right there. So I could very quickly swap between weapons and know exactly what I have equipped without having to look at any other different information, maybe like up here or something like that. The other macros over here are very simple. Mind numb apply. It's this click button 1, click button 2. So it's an easy 1 button poison apply macro. And that's all I have for macros. As you can see, when I go into stealth, my action bars are exactly the same, so there's no delay. If I were to go to this guy, once stealth is back up, instantly cast the ability. There's no delay between actions, and that is that for macros. And that's it for the video. If you made it to the end, thank you so much for watching. Join my Discord or post a comment down below if you have any questions, and we'll see you all in TBC. Peace.